How's it going everyone, it is Panjano here, and in this video we're going to be showing you guys how to get the very best FPS possible for Apex Legends Season 10. Regardless of the age or spec of your system, all the way from old, dated, low-end laptops to the latest and greatest in gaming hardware, this video is going to be helping you guys achieve the best FPS possible for your machine, whilst also helping you reduce any micro-stuttering you may be experiencing with inside of the game. We're also going to be optimizing the game so you have the lowest input latency possible. If you guys do enjoy this video and are happy with your results, please do remember to leave a like as it does help me out tremendously. And if you like this sort of content, please do consider pressing that subscription button alongside the bell notification, where you'll then be notified instantly whenever new content goes live on the channel. Kicking off with the optimizations, but first we're going to ensure that Apex Legends is installed correctly to your PC. The Source Engine benefits drastically from having the game installed to your Windows drive or your local disk C drive for most. If your game isn't currently installed to your local disk C drive, this could be causing some micro-stuttering issues in which you may have been experiencing. Right-click on the game with inside of Steam or Origin, navigate down to Properties, go to Local Files, select Browse. As you can see for me, this is installed to my local disk C drive. If your game wasn't installed to your C drive, navigate over to the game, navigate down to Manage, then select Uninstall. Reinstall the game. Another major tip before we jump into the main settings within inside of this video is to ensure that you're running on the latest version of Windows 10. Season 10 has literally just launched, and the night before there's been a major patch to Windows 10 which fixes many game stuttering issues across the board. To see if this update is available to you, navigate to the bottom left hand side, click on your Windows button, then click on Settings. Navigate to the bottom left hand side to Update and Security, navigate over to Windows Updates, then select Check for Updates. This update should then be available to you at the bottom. This will be an optional update. Go ahead and install this update, restart your PC. And another quick tip before we jump in to change any in-game settings to ensure that we do not lose any valuable information such as your keybinds and mouse sensitivity options, it is recommended to boot into the game, go over to your settings tab, take note of most of your gameplay options, your mouse and keyboard options such as your mouse sensitivity and any custom key bindings in which you have, as the last thing we want to do is to lose your mouse sensitivity, leaving you with an uncomfortable feeling game. With all the preparation out of the way, let's jump straight on into optimizing our brand new in-game configs. For this we need to navigate to the bottom left hand side, then type %users%, then press enter. You then want to click on the username for the profile in which you're currently using on your PC, then navigate down to saved games, respawn, Apex, local. These two files are completely fine to change around, you will not be banned. These are only your settings files in which control all of the in-game settings. You first of all need to open this in a text editable format. So navigate to the bottom left hand side, type in Notepad and open up Notepad. Go ahead and drag the settings.cfg into Notepad. You'll then be able to see all the information inside of it. What we're going to be doing is navigate inside of the description down below where you'll be able to see the settings.cfg Google Drive link. Once you click on that link, you'll then be brought to this page here. You then want to click on the settings.link and you should then be able to see the preview go all the way from the top all the way down to the bottom in the Google Doc. Then select Control and C on your keyboard at the same time to copy. Navigate back to your settings.cfg, highlight everything, remove everything, then right click, select paste. Once that's been done, navigate over to file, then select save. We can then move on to the video config.txt. Go ahead and double click on the video config.txt. Gib allow is going to be set to 0, CL particle fallback base is going to be left at 3, fallback particle multiplier 2, ragdoll max count 0, ragdoll self collision 0, force aniso is going to be set to 1, mat mip linear 0, stream memory is going to be set to 3 million, which is going to be the number 3 and then 6 zeros. Mat pick mip is going to be set to 0, particle CPU level 0, R create model decals 0, R decals 0, LOD switch scale, we need to change this down to 0.35, shadow enable is going to be set to 0, shadow depth min 0, shadow upres factor 0, shadow dynamic 0, SSAO enabled 0, SSAO downsample is going to be set to 3, DVS enable is going to be set to 0, DVS GPU frame min and max are both going to be set to 1. Default res and res height is going to be set to what it's currently set to on your PC. For you, do not change these numbers to match mine. Full screen is going to be set to 1, no border 0, volumetric lighting 0, VSync mode 0, matte back buffer count is going to be set to 1, anti-aliasing mode is going to be set to 0, CSM enabled is going to be set to 0, CSM coverage is going to be set to 1, CSM cascade res is going to be set to 64, fade distance scale is going to be set to 1, DVS super sample 0. Once you've set all of that up in your config file, navigate to the top left hand side to file, then select save. We now lastly need to lock in those settings so the game cannot automatically change them. We're going to do this by navigating over to our video config, right clicking, navigating down to properties, going down to attributes and making sure that read only has been selected. When you do have read only selected, do bear in mind every single time you change a setting within inside of the game, next time you boot the game, that setting will be changed back as it has nowhere to save that new setting to. So if you are going to make some changes, make sure that you do come back and modify the config to set those custom values for much better FPS, then lock it again, press apply, press OK. We now lastly need to set up our brand new AutoExec for the game. The AutoExec is just an additional file which contains all custom settings in which we can load instantly whenever the game is booted. To install the AutoExec, navigate inside of Origin or Steam, right click on Apex, navigate down to Properties, Local Files, Browse Local Files. With inside of it, we're going to be going inside of the CFG folder, then going to right click on the blank space, select New, and make a new text document. To name this text document AutoExec, then press Enter. We're then going to go inside of the AutoExec.txt, we're then going to navigate back inside of the description down below. We will then be able to find the AutoExec.cfg Google Doc. We're going to be navigating to the top left hand side, all the way from the top, all the way down to the bottom, highlighting everything with inside of the preview, then once again, holding down Control, then pressing C, going back inside of the text document, then pressing either Control and V, or just right clicking and selecting Paste. Navigate to the top left hand side, select File, then go down to Save As. With inside of it, we're then going to change the name from AutoExec.txt and change this to CFG. Once that's done, go down to Save As Type, then select all files, and then hit Save. You should then be able to see that you have a brand spanking new AutoExec.cfg, and under Type, this should come down as a CFG file. And then go ahead and right click, select Copy. We're going to be going inside of the client folder this time, right clicking and also pasting the file with inside of there just to be safe. Now, to ensure that all of our brand new configs and more importantly our AutoExec boots when the game boots, and for some further optimizations to reduce input latency, navigate inside of the description down below where you'll be able to find the section for launch options to copy and paste. Go all the way from the right hand side, all the way to the left, right click, select Copy. Then for either Steam or Origin, we're going to boot into our launcher of choice, right click on Apex, select Properties, go to the General tab, go to Launch Options. Once the box is blank, right click, select Paste. For those of you that are running on Steam, there's a few quick optimizations which we can apply to the Steam launcher itself. Navigate to the top left hand side, click on Steam, then navigate down to Settings. Navigate down to the Interface tab and ensure that Enable Smooth Scrolling and Enable GPU Acceleration are both unselected. Follow that up by going over to Library, then ensure that both Low Bandwidth Mode and Low Performance Mode have both been selected. Continuing with the game optimizations, we can this time navigate over to Apex Legends, navigate to Properties, and go over to Local Files, Browse. This time with inside of here, we're going to be navigating down to the R5 Apex.exe, right clicking, selecting Properties. Navigating up to the Compatibility tab and ensuring that both Disable Full Screen Optimizations, then navigating down to Change High DPI Settings and Override High DPI Scaling Behavior Performed By are both selected. Select OK, apply, and OK. Now before we boot into the game and finalize our in-game settings, we're going to be going over a few vital Windows settings in which we can utilize to ensure that we have the lowest input latency possible and the highest FPS. First of all, we're going to be navigating to the bottom left hand side, typing in the GPU space settings, and then pressing enter. If you do have this option available with inside of here, it is recommended for every single person watching to turn this on, as this can help reduce your input latency. We're also going to be navigating down to the Graphics Performance Preference tab, then selecting Browse. We're then going to navigate to the installation directory of Apex Legends, then go down and select R5 Apex.exe, then select Add. Once this has been added, navigate over to the Options menu, then select High Performance, select Save, and exit out. For an extremely important fix for those of you that use either Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge web browsers, once inside of the web browser, navigate to the top right hand side to the three dots, then select the Settings button. With inside of here on the left hand side, select Appearance, then proceed to scroll down to the Advanced section at the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom once again and you'll see the option for Continue Running Background Apps when Google Chrome is closed. You want to ensure that this option is turned off. For the next and arguably most important optimization throughout this entire video, we're actually going to be installing a fresh GPU driver to the system and removing all of the old drivers which are still lurking around, bloating our PC and slowing down game performance. By all means, if you want to keep things super simple and quick, you can just update your GPU driver as you usually would. Just make sure that you are running on the latest driver for your system. For this, you need to navigate to the bottom of your PC, right click on your taskbar, then open up Task Manager. Navigate over to the Performance tab, then scroll all the way down on the bottom on the left hand side, select GPU 0. On the top right hand side, you'll then be able to see the make and model of the graphics card you have installed. With that information, you then need to navigate inside of the description down below where you'll be able to find the AMD Radeon and NVIDIA GeForce driver download links. Select the download link which matches the make of your GPU. For NVIDIA GeForce users, simply scroll down to the manual driver search, input your product type, operating system and language, then select Start Search. Proceed to scroll down once again, go to the driver results, then download the latest game ready driver available by clicking on Get Download, then selecting Download Now. For those of you running on an AMD Radeon based graphics card, scroll down to the Graphics tab, select the graphics make and model which you're using. So for me, that's going going to be a Radeon 6000 series, the RX 6700 series, and a RX 6700 XT, then select Submit. Click on the operating system, then either choose the optional driver or the recommended WHQL. Once the driver has been downloaded to your system, go ahead and select Show in Folder and drag the drivers onto your desktop. Now for those of you that are looking to just update your GPU driver simply and easily, boot into the driver in which you downloaded, run through the prompts on screen, select the Express installation, and this will then update your GPU driver. For those of you running on an AMD Radeon based graphics card, this driver is good to be installed to our system after we flush out all of the old drivers. For those of you running on an NVIDIA based graphics card, we have one extra step to modify our driver to remove all of the excess bloat from this, which can drastically help performance. For this we need to download a custom tool named NVIDIA or NV Slimmer. Link to this can be found in the description down below. Just proceed to scroll down, then select one of the download mirrors. The tool should then be downloaded to your PC. Open up the zip file. What we're then going to do is make a quick folder on our desktop, select New, Folder, then call it something like NVIDIA Slimmer. For me, I'm going to be calling it NVS. Drag the contents of this folder you just downloaded into the folder on the desktop. We're then going to drag in our full fat NVIDIA driver and also drop it inside of that folder. We're then going to go inside of the NVS folder, and inside of here we're then going to be looking for the nvslimmer.exe. Double click on this. We're then going to select the driver we downloaded earlier on, select Open. If you met with any warnings or issues, just select OK. With inside of here, we then need to select all of the options we wish to keep from the driver and deselect all of the options we're going to remove. On the right hand side of the screen now, you're seeing recommended options in which you should select for your system depending on whether or not you have a laptop. If you use HDMI, the main options we need to have selected for everyone are going to be PhysX, Install Core, Core Display Driver, and for those of you running on laptops, you must have Optimus support selected as well. Once you've selected all of the options you need for your system, go to the bottom left hand side, select Apply, then select Yes. Install driver, we're going to select No. Go down to the bottom right hand side to repackage, select Desktop, select OK. This will then begin to repack a brand new driver in which we can install later on after cleaning out our old drivers. This will typically have a different logo attached to it, but it should be the same name of the driver. Once that's done, we can then select Exit Out on NV Slimmer. This step is necessary for both AMD Radeon and NVIDIA GeForce users, and we're going to do this by utilizing a program known as DDU or Display Driver Uninstaller, link in which can be found in the description down below. Once you've clicked on the link, you'll be brought to this web page down here for the download section for DDU. Then click on the official download here button, go to the bottom left hand side, select Open, click on the three dots, select your desktop, select OK, then hit Extract. Now to use the program for the best results, it is recommended to boot into Windows using safe mode. The reason we're going to be doing this is because we're going to be uninstalling the display driver in which most of us are currently using on our PCs to, well, display an output to the monitor in which we're actually using to make sure that we can fully remove all of the old drivers and boot into Windows with none of that installed and just install our brand new debloated driver. You first of all want to go over to your keyboard and find the bottom left shift key. Press and hold this key and we're going to release this later on. With the shift key held down, navigate to the bottom left hand side, press the Windows button, right click on your power option, and we're going to navigate down to Restart. Continue to hold the shift key whilst restarting the system. Under the Choose an Option menu, navigate to the bottom left hand side to Troubleshoot. Then going to navigate down to Advanced Options, then navigate to the middle option titled Startup Settings, then navigate to the bottom right, then select Restart. After the system has been restarted, we're then going to select option number 4, which should be Enable Safe Mode. So for this, navigate over to your keyboard and press number 4. Once inside of it, go ahead and open up the DDU folder on your desktop and open up Display Driver Uninstaller.exe. Select OK to any of the pop-ups that come up, then select Close. We then need to navigate over to the right hand side to select Device Type. So select GPU. You'll then need to select the make of GPU drivers in which you're going to be uninstalling. So if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, select NVIDIA. If you have an AMD, select AMD. We're going to be using the Clean and Restart option, so press this button. The system will then automatically be restarted. You'll then be booted back into Windows normally. Once the system has restarted and you're booted back into Windows, you'll then want to select either the NVIDIA debloated driver or the AMD Radeon driver, depending on which graphics card you have installed, and boot into that driver and start the installation process. For those of you running on an NVIDIA card, double click on your brand new debloated driver, go ahead and select Yes. This will then begin to extract the driver. Select the green Continue. An important step here is to ensure that you have the Express Installation Recommended option selected, then select Next. This will then begin to install to your system and you may be required to do a restart once the driver has been successfully fully installed. We can now go ahead and apply some very quick control panel settings for both the AMD Radeon settings panel and the NVIDIA control panel, which you can both access by right clicking on the desktop and either selecting the NVIDIA control panel or the AMD Radeon settings panel. For NVIDIA users, you'll want to navigate over to the Manage 3D Settings tab and you'll want to copy all of the settings in which you're currently being shown on screen now. For those of you that debloated your driver earlier on, you'll remember that we didn't actually install the GeForce Experience with that driver. Now, if you haven't used the GeForce Experience in the past or have no plans to do so in the future, I would actually recommend not installing the GeForce Experience whatsoever, as it will be running in the background soaking up resources. But if you still want to use the GeForce Experience, use the link in the description down below to be brought to the GeForce Experience download page, then select download now, open up the downloaded file, going to the bottom right hand side, selecting agree and install, and you'll be back up and running on the GeForce Experience in no time. If you're still experiencing micro stutter or weird mouse movements with inside of Apex, you might actually find better results by lowering your mouse polling rate or mouse hertz. 1000 Hz is going to ensure that you do have the lowest input latency possible. You may find better results, like myself, running your mouse at 500 Hz, as this reduces some of that strain. You can do this by typically opening up any mouse software you may have installed to your system. Most of the common mouse software will have an option where you'll be able to change either the polling rate or mouse refresh rate, or sometimes even just called mouse hertz. Try bringing that down to 500 if it's currently set to 1000. This now moves us on to the advanced section of this video, where we're going to be going over a few more advanced optimizations for those of you that really want to get stuck into the nitty-gritty optimizations. But the first advanced optimization, this is towards GPU performance, and which should be set for every single person watching. For this, you need to navigate inside the description down below, where you'll be able to find the MSI utility download link. You'll then be brought to this web page found here, where you'll be able to find the message signal based interrupts tool by simply scrolling down through this blog post. Go to around about the middle section. I'm going to be downloading the V3 edition, so I'm going to be clicking on the media file link, then selecting download now. Once the tool is downloaded to your system, it's recommended to drag this over to your desktop, right click on the file, run this as administrator, select more info, then select run anyway. First of all, we need to navigate to the top left hand side and find the graphics card which we have installed to our system. For me, that's going to be my Nvidia RTX 3080. Navigate over to the right hand side to the MSI box. If your box isn't ticked, make sure that this box for MSI mode has been ticked. We can then proceed to the right hand side to the drop down menu, be setting this to high. Once that's done, go to the top right hand side, select apply, exit out. That can further help reduce input latency by reducing frame times and providing you with a bit of a performance uplift on every game you play. The next tweak in which we're going to be looking at is going to be the large page utility, which can be downloaded in the description down below. Applying this fix to any and all of the games installed to your system can help provide them with a larger page, in turn giving them a much better RAM allocation on your system. Simply scroll down, click on the media file link, select download in the top right hand side. Once the file has been downloaded, once again drag this to your desktop. We're then going to simply open up the large page file utility by double clicking, selecting more info, and run anyway. Navigate to the top left hand side, and this is where we're going to be putting in the game application's exe name. So for Apex Legends, that is going to be r5apex.exe. Once that's then been typed in, select add, select save, then select add in the top right, then exit out. You'll then see that you have a large page file utility reg file on your desktop. Double clicking on the file, selecting yes and OK. We're now running a much larger page for Apex. Another highly impactful advanced optimization in which we can apply is to disable the high precision event timer with inside of your PC. This can help reduce micro stuttering in almost every single game you're playing, and can also have some impressive gains to reducing your input latency. To see if this is already disabled on your PC or to turn this off, simply navigate to the bottom left hand side, where we're going to be typing in device space manager. We're going to be navigating down to system devices, where you'll then be able to see high precision event timer. As you can see on my system, this is currently enabled, and we can right click on this and select disable device, then select OK and yes. Now if at any point you do run into any performance issues with inside of Windows, or Windows starts running extremely slow or quite buggy, come back with inside of the device manager, revert it back to the setting in which it originally was. But for the majority of you watching, you shouldn't have any issues. Now before our game is completely finalized, set up and good to go, it is recommended to set an FPS cap with inside of the game as close to your monitor's refresh rate as possible, as there is still a slight bug with inside of Apex Legends where if you go above 190 frames per second, the engine actually starts bugging out. So capping your FPS to 190 or below is recommended regardless of how good your frames per second is. With that being said, for the best FPS cap possible, it is recommended to cap exactly at your monitor's refresh rate, as this will keep your frame time pacing exact with your monitor's refresh rate, or a multiple of your refresh rate. So for me, I'm running on a 240Hz monitor, so that will mean that I should be capping at either 240 frames per second, 120 or 60, as those are all multiples of my refresh rate, whichever is more achievable for your system. Of course you can go without an FPS cap, but these methods will be introducing input latency. My favorite method of capping FPS with inside of games quickly and easily is to use the RTSS app. For those of you that have MSI Afterburner installed to your system already, you will already have RivaTuner Statistics Server installed. If you don't already have this app installed, navigate inside of the description down below to the RivaTuner Statistics Server download link, scroll all the way down to the bottom and download the latest version available to you. Select your language, Select yes. When the program is running, navigate to the bottom right hand side to your task icon tray, then click on the blue monitor, set the application detection level to medium or high, navigate over to the frame rate limit, and simply input the number you want to cap to. For me, I'm going to be capping to 190, so I'm going to input 190, press enter. I can tab back inside of my game. On the top right hand side, as you can see, I'm now capped at 190 frames per second. That cap is not moving, and my frame time graph is incredibly stable. The more consistent and flat that line is, the more smooth your game is going to feel. If at any point you want to change or remove your FPS cap, simply tab out, go into Riva Tuner, set this to either 0 or change the cap number, tap back in, and as you can see, we're already getting frame time variation all over the place. And I'll have a more in-depth video coming to the channel soon on how to properly set up an FPS cap for all games and how to achieve the smoothest games possible. So stay tuned to the channel and subscribe if you're into that. Here are a few last closing optimizations and pieces of advice on what to look into if you are serious about getting the most performance possible out of your system. With inside of your system's BIOS, you want to ensure that you're running on the XMP profile or DOCP profile for your memory. This will allow you to achieve the best speed possible from the RAM kit you have installed to your system. Alongside this, it's also worthwhile to check and see if your graphics card supports resizable bar and above 4G decoding. These two options will be able to be found under the PCI section of most BIOSes for newer gaming PCs. If you see one or two of these options available to you, it is always recommended to use these for the best performance possible. In terms of CPU overclocking, what to look out for and other CPU tweaks, for those of you running on 8 core or higher CPUs, it is recommended to actually disable hyperthreading on Intel and SMT, also hyperthreading on AMD, as using a hyperthreading core will introduce more input latency and some frame time instability in heavy CPU workloads. Most games still prefer single-threaded performance, and if you're on an 8 core or higher CPU anyway, those 8 cores will be more than enough. Doing this will also reduce the temperatures and the power draw on the CPU, helping it run cooler for longer, also helping you further overclock the CPU without running into instability. My personal recommendation for most Battle Royale games out there is to actually disable hyperthreading and SMT on your system at all times and apply the highest all-core overclock in which you possibly can, even if that all-core overclock is not as high as some of the single-threaded boost performances provided by algorithms such as PBO. It is also recommended for every single person watching this video, regardless of how good or bad your system is, to look into overclocking your graphics card. It's incredibly simple, free, and easy to do, and in the description down below and card on the top right hand side of the screen now, you'll be brought into my ultimate GPU overclocking guide for beginners, where you'll be able to see anywhere from 5 to 25% increased performance across the board in every game you play, completely free and safely. Now, for those of you that are serious about getting the best feeling game, the lowest input latency, and the best FPS possible whilst playing, it is recommended not to touch your graphics settings once you've booted the game, and to keep these worst looking textures, as your game will be running fantastically with them. But if you cannot stand the washed out looking textures on my character model here, and you want to fine tune your settings a little bit further, first of all, you want to ensure that your mouse and keyboard settings are still applied. We can then navigate over to the video tab. It's recommended to ensure that full screen has been selected and your resolution is set to your native resolution. Set brightness to your personal preference, field of view to your personal preference, FOV ability scaling to your personal preference, sprint view shake should be set to minimal, and VSync should be disabled. If NVIDIA Reflex is available to you, for those of you running on an NVIDIA GTX based graphics card, I'd recommend going with Enable plus Boost. For those of you running on an RTX based graphics card, I'd recommend going with Enabled. We can then proceed to go down to Texture Streaming Budget. This is going to be the option which is going to change the way the textures look inside of game. If you do have a relatively good graphics card, I would recommend whacking this all the way up to insane 8GB, as this will allocate more VRAM to the game, which will help reduce any micro stuttering you may be experiencing. It just makes that VRAM available to the game. For those of you running on sort of medium end graphics cards, I would set this to high. Applying this option will then simply change the way the textures look in game, and as you can see, my character model looks fantastic. But for the most part, I wouldn't recommend changing anything from how it looks on my screen here, as this is going to be the best balance of performance and visuals for the game in which you're running on. You'll be able to see a quick gameplay example on the screen now of me running these exact settings with the texture streaming budget set to higher than normal, so we don't have the washed out looking textures. But for full disclosure, I usually play on this with none, with the default settings applied whenever I boot the game with the washed out textures, as that does provide me with just that little bit of extra FPS. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please do remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content, and check out the video on screen now for more performance increases.